Okay, today we are very honored to invite Thanh, founder and CEO of Coin98, to discuss the evolution of Vietnam's crypto market from a long-term on-the-ground perspective. So, first question, Thanh, what first drew you into crypto? Public information suggests you entered the industry as early as 2017. From your perspective, what have been the most important shifts and turning points in Vietnam's crypto markets over the past decade?
I think that it's very fortunate for me to starting the crypto journey in Vietnam quite early. I know a lot more people is a lot more OG than me. But I think like starting my journey from 2017 until now is it's been like 8 years of incredible journey. I think I have a chance to seeing the whole crypto landscape and community in Vietnam, starting from a place where there's a lot of um, uh, like scam projects back in the day. Crypto is like considering is never been considered as a asset class, and people thought that Bitcoin is just a scam to a level where right now the world is starting to recognize crypto as a new asset class and Bitcoin becoming a new digital gold. And with a lot of things happen in Vietnam, I think like we also um, is it's amazing to see the whole country that we live in now also starting to support crypto and also having a huge change in terms of develop a regulation framework that supported crypto in Vietnam. Starting from I think in the last 2 years, and I think 2025 is the pivot moment for the whole country where I think you can see the resolution 05 also state that now we're starting to have a very clear framework moving forward to support crypto and that's for me that's a huge in within 8 years I can see like the whole space develop from a place where people don't understand what it is to a place where a lot of people in Vietnam like me starting to build up companies and products that fulfill demand across the world and now heading to the stage where the country is starting to support crypto. So I think for me that's a very incredible journey.
Okay, so at a high level, how big is Vietnam's crypto market today? Roughly, how many users are there? How active is trading? And how mainstream is crypto adoption? What does the competitive landscape among exchanges in Vietnam look like right now?
I don't have a specific numbers in my hand, but I think that there's a lot of people that are trying to do research on this. So I think and every researcher, everyone out with a report have a different numbers, but I think relatively, their numbers is quite make sense. So if you let's start with chain analysis, right? So chain analysis do have a global crypto adoptions and crypto index number. And I think in the last 3 years, Vietnam's is always in the top five of the countries that have and own most of crypto in the world. So I think we have a quite high crypto ownership rate. I think last numbers is always it's also above 20%, which means it also means Vietnamese users already have a very good demand for this asset class. There's also another research from Chain Analysis states that there are around 20 million people in Vietnam holding cryptocurrency right now. So I think that's also quite significant numbers. In terms of how active it is, I think let's use Binance traffic, OKX traffic, and other exchanges like Bybit, BitGet, and others to see how Vietnam is active on that. And I think from public numbers, you can easily to see that Vietnam is always in the top of the countries at least in the top 5 active countries in the world, and for on exchange. And I think that's also, I think that numbers is quite accurate with the current sentiments from communities inside. You can see a lot of retails and retail communities opening accounts, trading actively on these platforms. And I think recently, I think in the last 3 years, I'm starting to see a lot more numbers on the rise of Vietnamese users to start using DeFi protocol as well. A very easy trend you can see is now a lot of, like, most of the biggest blockchain in the world always have like representatives, and also trying to do a lot more educational campaigns in Vietnam, especially going to the universities, and to educate a lot more people to understand about the technologies and use. So I think all these kind of numbers is quite point out how active it is for crypto community in Vietnam that haven't been till now. In terms of builder side, you can also seeing like notable projects are starting to go now in Vietnam as well. So I think in the last few years, we have seen the whole ecosystem in Vietnam, starting from developer side to startup companies to especially retail communities that like actively trading on centralized exchanges, and also like using DeFi protocols. I think we see a significant contribution in terms of traffics and user base to these protocols.
Yeah, so from your perspective, it's throughout the country, it's very supportive. And so where do Vietnamese users typically first enter the crypto world? Through exchanges, wallets, communities, or KOLs or friends? And what are their most common use cases?
The way that I can see people, every people have their own way to enter the crypto, right? So I think you like for my generation, a lot of people getting to know about this space because of Bitcoin. So people are starting to do Bitcoin minings, and or some people just holding some kind of Bitcoins, and then that's how people are starting to get into this space. Some people in my generation also is maybe initially they didn't start with buying Bitcoin. They starting with like doing some make money online business, and then they're starting to accept Bitcoin as a form of payments for their services. So that's how people in my generation starting to get into crypto. But for a lot of people, I think in the last in 2021, a lot of people got into crypto that I can see is actually from GameFi and also DeFi. There's a And I think in the last 1-2 years, a lot of people that I can see joining crypto because of memes. So I think every cycle we have different reason to enter the crypto. But I think there's a common patterns, no matter what trends and narratives stand out every cycles, is that I think people still is still going viral through and getting people getting to know about crypto because of word of mouth. So they're starting to know about that because of their friends, maybe because of the KOLs that they follows, or because of there's a lot of news and community writing about that. So I think that's kind of behavior still driving the community until today. Um, and of course, I think every country, so people are starting to getting to know about crypto, and starting to use centralized exchanges. And I guess that's also the reason why when Vietnam government starting to develop a regulation framework in Vietnam, they usually started with regulated the centralized exchange business, and I think that's also make a lot of sense.
So how would you describe the Vietnamese crypto user profile, like from age distribution, risk appetite, how quickly they adopt new narratives, and whether they tend to be more central exchanges, originated, or on-chain? What stands out across these dimensions?
I think that I think like 4 years ago, Vietnamese crypto was I think like a lot more familiar with centralized exchange business. So I think like in order to teach them or like introduce them about new coins or tokens, usually the tokens need to be listed on a famous exchange that they put the funds on. However, I think in the recent years, I starting to see people starting to learn how to use crypto and how to understand DeFi. So now I think people are starting to understand a lot more about DeFi protocols. They know only not only how to use it, but also like how to leverage those tools to make to building their own strategies to make more money for them. So I think like those Vietnamese people is still I think they're still risk taker, and they still trying. I think a lot of people that I know still prefer um, to finding high risk, high return investment strategies instead of just like a um, a low yield income and stuff like that. However, I think that's because maybe because of the Vietnam market before the regulation come out, it's just about it's still a risk market. So people who are having a lot of funds and trying they're willing to make more bet and invest a bigger size of money. These people haven't entered the crypto yet because of the regulation. But now with new regulation come out, I think there will be a very there will be a diversify of customers, users, and people who have different risk appetite. But yeah, but if we just you're going back into the users enter the crypto since 2017 or even before that until now, I think a lot of them is still risk takers who are familiar with centralized exchange business. And however, I think their education level right now is a lot higher, and then people not only trading on exchange, but they're also starting to using DeFi to trade as well.
So talking about the current regulatories, so what does the current regulatory situation in Vietnam look like? Is the government's overall stance more supportive, restrictive, or neutral? Looking ahead, what key developments should we pay the closest attention to?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question. I think in my personal view, I think the regulation framework just released in Vietnam is in a is being developed under a conservative, supportive direction. What I mean by that, so in general, I think the government is still trying. Number one, blockchain is being classified as one of the fourth technologies, the key technologies the whole countries will focus from 2025 to 2030. So it means that from the strategic point of view, blockchains is one of the core technologies that the whole country want to focus on. That's why I think in general the regulation is being developed in a way that's supportive, that's trying to support the whole industry to becoming big and go mass in Vietnam. However, because this technology is quite new to a lot of people, and we don't fully understand the risks, and when we're introducing this the whole crypto market to the mass. That's why I think initially the government still taking conservative approach in develop when they develop the regulation framework. which means like, I think like, a lot of news that you heard. Initially, we will start with 5 only license exchanges, the services will start to open over time. Initially, there will be quite limited services that limited to spot trading only, and every tokens need to be quoted in BND. And then from there, from the way that the government see how they manage the market, then there will be a lot more service will be offered later on. But in general, I think the motivation for the whole country is how can we make blockchain becoming a key and critical technologies that empower the Vietnam economy, and that's remain true, and that's remains the focus on from the government side, and that's exactly what we we've been told to as well.
Yeah, and in terms of preferences, what projects or sectors do Vietnamese retail users gravitate towards, such as BTC, is various layer ones, memes, DeFi, GameFi, etc. What do you think drives these preferences? Culture, distribution channels, profit chasing dynamics, product supply, or the way information spreads?
I think that from the way I see, Vietnamese investment strategies change over time, and I think like for now, people are starting to go back into Bitcoin and majors. I think and then beside of that, Vietnamese users also starting to getting interest in other types of assets that being tokenized on chain. We can see interest is starting to get in tokenized gold, or recently we can see silver, some kind of metals, other types of commodities. I think people starting to see these assets becoming a lot more serious, and easier to invest than not only crypto native projects. And however, I think people are still open for new opportunities. One example you can see is every trend that happens right now, every narrative, there's always a very good amount of Vietnamese is also being part of that. I think recently you see memes, right? And then AI coins, and there's some other types of narratives. Vietnamese always there's always a good set of people that follow and is still catching up with that. But I think the majority right now, from what I can see, is already going back into majors and BTC.
Yeah, I agree with you. From this cycle, we're also witnessing a combination of TradFi and crypto, and in the 2020 to 2022 cycle, a number of Vietnamese projects gained visibility, especially in GameFi. But in this cycle, since 2024, we've heard much less about Vietnamese projects. Do you share that impression? If so, what do you think explains it?
I think is we're still seeing a lot of Vietnamese projects that develop in across all the sectors and across all the blockchains. And the reason why I know it is because Coin 98 also and 98 have a small venture funds that we continue to invest in supporting Vietnamese founders, and so their projects are still working on that. The reason why I think there's not many projects that you're getting famous in the last 1 or 2 years yet is because of number one is because of the market is there's not much things that stand out in the last 2 years, not even 2 years. I think we enter the bear market since 2022 until now, and I think during that times nothing's really stand out and really go crazy. So I think like that's one of the reasons why we haven't seen a lot of like Vietnamese users, Vietnamese projects that stand out yet. And the second is that I think that like is it's not only a declining in terms of the numbers of projects like come out from Vietnam, but I can also see the same trend happen across crypto. The reason for that is like people are starting to get interested in other spaces and technologies like AI, and I think like you can easily see a lot more interesting companies that like getting a lot more high valuations and velocity of growth on their domain. And I think like on one side crypto is like it's still like declining since that 2022, and on the other side there's something just new and more interesting and that attract a lot more talents come into that. And I think that's also another reason why we haven't seen a lot of things that a lot of companies like coming out from Vietnam in the last like 1 or 2 years. And the third thing is that as crypto becoming a lot more mature, we will need a very clear legal guidance and regulation framework for crypto founders to know exactly what they can do and what they cannot do. And I think like with the new regulation coming out in Vietnam, that's also in like bringing a lot of confidence for crypto founders. And I hope that we can see a lot more crypto projects coming out from Vietnam starting from now, thanks to the clear regulation framework starting from this year. So I think like that's a combination of a lot of reasons, but hopefully we will see a lot more projects coming up from Vietnam in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So what is the developer ecosystem in Vietnam really like today? And which areas are builders focusing on most? Which cities are crypto startups concentrated in? And what does the typical team size and maturity level look like?
I think that in Vietnam nowadays, there's a very good set of developers focusing on EVM, Solidity, and Rust. So Rust right now, I think like those people are mainly focused on Solana. I think like Solana is just really getting big in Vietnam right now, and thanks to like the effort that super teams putting in a local market in the last like 3 years. They've been very active in terms of like growing developers communities, helping developers to finding jobs and or even start their projects. And I think like that effort that putting in the last 2-3 years now getting payoff. So on one side, people in Vietnam hold a lot of soul, and on the other side, developers in Vietnam also starting to getting a lot more priorities in terms of development on Solana. Another reason is like Solana is also like a very active chain in the last couple of years. We can see that by all the metrics, right? Like the biggest applications that making decent revenues in Vietnam is also in on Solana. It's also in crypto. It's also coming from Solana. Solana also like getting very famous on memes. Solana also like have the most of the users trading on there. Always it seems like always leaning to Solana. So I think like and with the effort they put in the local market now, I think Solana already have a very good significant a good size of developers community. Alongside with that, I think like Ethereum is still holding the legacies of EVM ecosystem. So we still see a very loyal and good amount of developers who still understand and even like going deeper into EVM and Solidity. So those kind of people right now is still like growing big. A lot of like developers in Vietnam decided to join foreign companies, and that's how they starting to like challenge their skills and also contributing to a lot more open protocols. And because of like there's a not a lot of Vietnamese projects in like 1 or 2 years. A lot of these developers, to continue to grow, they still need to looking for jobs or a position in other projects. So I think I can see that, like, Vietnam in a very it's really becoming a talent pool for a lot of crypto projects nowadays, and I think that trend is growing.
Yeah, so how interested are local and international investors in Vietnamese projects today? And back when Coin98 raised funding, was the fundraising process smooth for you?
Yeah, I think like we got lucky when we raised in 2021, and then, like, lucky to get supported from a lot of big investors across the world. I think like part of that is, I think we're kind of lucky when at the time that we raised, we are one of very few projects in the region that already have the products and running live for 1 2 years before we raise. Back then, I think like we're going from start like raising fund with a white paper to raising fund with the MVP to, I think, like, I think we're quite ahead with like raising fund with a working products that already have the users and decent. So I think that's also helped a lot. And the second is, I think, like, the market is also like getting very high in 2021, so it's also make like fundraising a lot easier. I think like with that, and of course, with the team is working tirelessly for 4 years before that moment. I think that also introducing a lot of confidence in terms of investors. So I think for us, I like it's a combination of hard work and luck, and the right timing. For for Vietnamese projects nowadays, I think not only for Vietnamese but for other projects, I think, like, we we're seeing, like, raising fund right now is just getting harder. Not because of the project itself, but it's because the market is just tanking, right? So that people invest in venture deals, getting harder to raise fund. Um, and because these people losing the money in other venture deals, and because of the market just going down, so people don't have, like, even investors don't have a lot more mandate to invest in new projects. So I think like the decline of venture funds size in the regions itself, and also the market itself also affected on the capabilities and abilities to raise funds for projects, not only in Vietnam but across Asia. At least, in from the way that I can see.
Yeah, so the last question, what do you see as the core strengths and distinctive traits of Vietnam as a country and of Vietnamese people within the crypto industry? I've noticed that Vietnamese talent shows up frequently in community and growth roles across many projects. So why do you think that is?
In terms of like educations and like having the curiosity to learn more about projects and the whole space works, the education level in Vietnam community will continue to grow, because I think like after a couple of years of enter the of getting to know the space and skin in the game, people now quite familiar with all these tools, and in some way I think, like, people also like fall in love with the whole space as well. So like I think people still having the interest to learn more about the technologies, to learn more about new projects, and also, like, constantly looking for new projects to invest in. I think that trend is like not going down anytime soon, and I don't see any reason why it happened. On in terms of However, I think with a new regulation framework, everything when they trade, they will need to learn a new way to trade. For example, now, if you want to trade an asset, you need to deposit your assets into a centralized exchange that being regulated. and trade over there instead of trading on other unregulated platform. So that's the way people have to trade will a little bit change, but I think it won't slow down the interest of the local participants. In terms of developers community, I think it's 100%. I think the regulation framework is just have developers and founders to have more confidence to start building in the space. So I think it's even better for them with this. And for the whole country, I think we're on the right track to really trying to explore how to use blockchains and make it becoming a core technologies that empower and pushing the growth of our own economy in the next coming years. Of course, there's still a lot of things to do, and there's still a lot of policies and clear guidance for people. But I think in general, I can see the effort that the government put into this to make it work and make it becoming a core industry for our own economy is huge, and they're really committed to that.
Thank you very much, and thanks for sparing time to chat with us.
Thank you very much for the interview today. If you need more information about the Vietnam updates or something like that, just let us know.